The announcement coming out of Pyongyang in late December did not arrive as a loud declaration of war, but it may represent one of the most consequential geopolitical shifts of the Ukraine conflict so far. When North Korean leader Kim Jong-un publicly described the relationship with Russia as one of shared blood, life, and death, he was not speaking symbolically. He was signaling a transition from indirect alignment to operational cooperation, a move that quietly redraws the map of the war in Europe and extends it far beyond its original borders. For most of the conflict, Russia has relied on internal mobilization, domestic production, and limited external support. North Korea, by contrast, has spent decades building an economy and a military structure designed to survive isolation, sanctions, and prolonged confrontation. When these two systems begin to integrate, even partially, the implications stretch far beyond the battlefield in Ukraine. Reports indicating North Korean involvement in logistical and technical military tasks inside Russian territory, including mine clearance and rear area support, suggest something important. This is not about symbolic solidarity. This is about freeing Russian manpower, preserving Russian combat units, and extending Russia's capacity to sustain a long war. Every task performed by Allied forces behind the lines allows frontline units to remain in position longer, rotate less frequently, and absorb pressure more effectively. Strategically, this cooperation also reflects a shared assessment of the global order. Both Moscow and Pyongyang see the current moment as an opportunity to challenge Western influence, while the international system is stretched thin. The war in Ukraine has already consumed vast diplomatic, financial, and military resources from the United States and Europe. By deepening coordination now, Russia and North Korea are betting that Western escalation fatigue will work in their favor. For North Korea, the incentives are clear. Participation in a major conventional war, even indirectly, provides battlefield exposure that no military exercise can replicate. It also opens the door to technology transfers, operational experience, and political leverage. Pyongyang is not simply supporting Russia out of ideological alignment. It is investing in its own long-term strategic position, particularly in missile development, satellite technology, and advanced conventional capabilities. This partnership also complicates deterrence calculations in East Asia. If Russia emerges from this war with deeper military ties to North Korea, the security environment around the Korean peninsula changes. South Korea, Japan, and the United States would be forced to reassess not only North Korea's capabilities, but also the network supporting them. A North Korea with access to Russian expertise, data, or resources becomes a fundamentally different challenge. Meanwhile, the impact on Ukraine is indirect but significant. The presence of additional support personnel inside Russia allows Moscow to maintain pressure along multiple fronts without dramatic escalation. Instead of launching risky offensives, Russia can continue a strategy of attrition, wearing down Ukrainian defenses while signaling that its capacity to sustain the war is expanding rather than shrinking. Politically, this development undermines one of the West's core assumptions, that Russia would eventually become isolated enough to force a strategic retreat. The emerging Russia-North Korea axis suggests the opposite. Isolation has not produced collapse. It has produced adaptation, alignment, and alternative networks of support. There is also a broader global message embedded in this cooperation. It signals to other sanctioned or semi-isolated states that long-term resistance is possible, not through self-sufficiency alone, but through strategic partnerships that bypass Western-dominated systems. This is less about forming a formal alliance and more about normalizing cooperation outside the established international framework. Looking ahead, the key question is not whether North Korean involvement will dramatically change the battlefield tomorrow. It likely will not. The real question is how this cooperation reshapes the war's duration and the global security architecture around it. Wars are not decided only by breakthroughs, but by endurance, logistics, and political will. On all three fronts, Russia's position may have just improved. If this trend continues, the Ukraine war may increasingly resemble a node in a wider confrontation, where regional conflicts are no longer isolated but interconnected. Europe, East Asia, and the Middle East become parts of the same strategic equation, linked by shared pressures on the global system. The partnership between Russia and North Korea does not mark the beginning of a new war. It marks the normalization of a world where conflicts overlap, alliances blur, and endurance becomes the defining currency of power. That shift may ultimately outlast the war itself.